Well, once again, Michelle Obama, one of the most admired women in America, whips out the race card.
I don't think we've seen that. But what we've learned over this year is that hope is making a comeback. It is making a comeback, and let me tell you something. For the first time in my adult lifetime, I'm really proud of my country. And not just because Barack has done well, but because I think people are hungry for change. And I have been desperate to see our country moving in that direction.
Our family wasn't unique. And that's, right. As we talk about Chicago and the South Side, you know, Mom always said, 'cause she's the one that'll keep our little heads down, will keep us humble. She's like, there are a million Craig and Michelle and Baracks out there. It's just that our stories don't get told. We get caricatured because of the color of our skin, because of fear, because of a whole lot of stuff, because we don't know each other. We think that this family, this beautiful portrait, was the portrait of everybody in our neighborhood and of all of our family members. This was not unique. You know, everyone we knew got up every day and did what they were supposed to. Yeah. They held down jobs. They kept their lawns mowed. They strived to give their kids good values and access to better things, which is one of the reasons we moved from Martin Luther King Drive to 74th and Euclid, because my mom wanted us to have access to then what were better schools. But unbeknownst to us, we grew up in the period, as I write, called white flight. Yeah. That is, families like ours, upstanding families like ours, you know, who were doing everything we were supposed to do and better. As we moved in, white folks moved out because they were afraid of what our families represented. And I always stop there when I talk about this out in the world, because, you know, I want to remind white folks that y'all were running from us, you know, because
this family,
yeah. This family with all the values that you read about, yeah, you were running from us, and you're still running. They're stoking fears about Black and brown Americans, lying about how minorities will destroy the suburbs, whipping up violence and intimidation, and they're pinning it all on what's been an overwhelmingly peaceful movement for racial solidarity. It's true. Research backs it up. Only a tiny fraction of demonstrations have had any violence at all. So what the president is doing is, once again, patently false. It's morally wrong. And yes, it is racist.
Honestly, Michelle Obama, didn't they just buy a $12.7 million house in Martha's Vineyard on the ocean? Yet we're supposed to be afraid of climate change that's going to cause the waters to rise, but I digress. Michelle Obama, she was blessed to have two parents. Her father worked for the government, and Michelle, rather than go to the lousy local government school, she voluntarily got on a bus and went to a public school outside of her neighborhood. I mention this because she, her husband, and the Democrats oppose school choice to give other urban parents the same opportunity that she got. The girls, Sasha and Malia, they went to a private school first that was run by University of Chicago, where Barack Obama was a law professor. And then they went to Sidwell Friends when they moved to Washington, D.C. That's the she prep school that cost $40 grand a year that Chelsea Clinton went to. As far as Barack Obama is concerned, he was schooled in Indonesia briefly by a school that was set up for executives that belonged to an oil company. Barack Obama's mom remarried and married an oil company executive. But Obama's mom felt that he wasn't getting a sufficiently good education there. So she sent him back to Hawaii to live with her parents so he can get a better education. End up going to Punahou, the finest prep school in the state of Hawaii. After that, he attended Occidental College for 2 years here in Los Angeles. It's a very expensive and selective school, private school. Finished up at Columbia, private school, and then went on to Harvard Law School. Meanwhile, Michelle, after being bused outside of her neighborhood to go to a better high school, then goes to Princeton, even though her counselors, according to her, encouraged her not to apply there because they didn't think she was good enough to get in. She got in. One wonders whether or not she might have benefited because of her race. I don't know. I only mention that because it seems to me she ought to be far more grateful than in fact she is. She graduates from Princeton, goes to Harvard Law, then she goes back to Chicago, her hometown, works for a big law firm called Sidley and Austin, where she meets Barack Obama, who also worked at a very big, prestigious law firm, Sidley and Austin. The two of them have had a wonderful, blessed life. And I know that Obama never thought of himself as burdened by race, because when he decided to run for office, there was a big article about it in one of the news weeklies. He brought in all his homies, David Plouffe and Axelrod and Valerie Jarrett, all to determine whether or not he ought to run. And the article said, race never came up. Now, if racism is, quote, part of America's DNA, as President Obama later on said, how do you suppose race never came up? And the reason it never came up is because Obama, like most people who run for president, has a massive ego, thinks of himself as a world beater. That's not a dig. And as a result, did not believe that racism held him back, but thinks racism holds you back. So for those two reasons, that they've whipped out the race card, the Obamas. When Obama became president, what's one of the first things he said? The Cambridge police acted stupidly. No, they didn't. The Cambridge police were called by a neighbor who saw Skip Gates, a black man who was on vacation, forgot his door key, and broke into his own house with his cab driver. A neighbor saw this, called 911. A white cop shows up, very politely asked Skip Gates to leave the house. Rather than leave the house, he pulled an attitude, and Obama chastised the Cambridge police and said they acted stupidly when they hadn't. That was the first opportunity that Obama had to do some racial healing. He could have taught a lot of people in this country, don't assume racism first, follow instructions, and deal with any kind of conflict later on. Instead, the Cambridge police acted stupidly. And then if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. And then when speaking before the United Nations, he invoked Ferguson and said there's a place called Ferguson, so yes, we have our own problems. Ferguson was a lie. Michael Brown did not have his hands up, did not say don't shoot. So the Obamas are doing a great deal of damage. And by not supporting choice in school that both of them benefited from, that's hypocritical. In Philadelphia, among school-age teachers with school-age kids rather, 44% of them have their own school-age kids in private school. In Chicago, of the public school teachers with school-age kids, 39% of them have them in private school. Now, what does that tell you? That's like having a restaurant saying, come on in, but I wouldn't advise eating the food. So, former President and former First Lady Michelle Obama could do a great deal to advance racial healing in this country. Instead, they pull out the race card for votes. And for crying out loud, how can they, with a straight face, not support choice in school when the polls show black and brown parents want an option out of an underperforming, bad local urban government school, and Republicans want to give them an option out, and Democrats still have 95% of the black vote? That's not going to last. That's going to change. There was a documentary called Chicagoland. You can go online and take a look at it. Here you have a principal of a high school called Finger High School mapping routes to and from school so that the kids can use that route to possibly avoid being killed by the gangs that surround the school. Honestly.
You don't know what happened?
Nah,
How many shots were fired?
like 3.
And you don't know what direction they were shooting in? Have you heard of any conflict in the neighborhood?
You know, I'm not from out here. I don't know what be going on.
He was like, no, I don't know what's going on.
Amnesia.
Right. Were they from a car or were they just walking by?
Just people just like walking, I believe.
They just started shooting.
One
Crazy.
person. Yeah.
As hell.
It's times like this when the fear is all too real for Principal Dozier. In 2009, the brutal murder of one of her students was caught on video and broadcast worldwide on the internet.
Speaking of Chicago, all this left-wing firepower, my goodness, Father Pfleger, the anti-gun priest, is there. Bill Ayers, in whose living room Barack Obama started his career, former member of the Weather Underground, he's there. Minister Farrakhan, the head of the Nation of Islam, he's there. Jesse Jackson, the head of Rainbow Push, he's there. Former President Barack Obama has adopted Chicago as his hometown. He's there. Rahm Emanuel, Obama's chief of staff, two-term mayor of Chicago, he's there. Yet the city's finances are in the toilet, and you had over the last several weekends an average of 50 people shot and between 5 and 7 people killed. Simple question, why isn't Chicago a shining city on a hill? I don't know. Maybe it's because this Democrat socialism kind of thing is not quite as empathetic and warm and caring as they tell us.
I hate rich people. I mean, half the world's starving to death, and he lives like that. I mean, I ask you. You see, I believe in a fairer distribution of wealth. I always have done. Well, I'm a socialist, you see. And I think, you know, we should all do everything we can to help, because that is the creed. Soft.
I'm Larry Elder, and we've got a country to save. I'll see you next time.